So 25 plus career in sales is something I coined the fish. And the fish is what a lot of salespeople think rapport is. Being intentional about why you're there. We're all busy. Why should the customer spend an hour or 30 minutes talking to you? Having an agenda for the customer, being on time, having a plan, your follow-up is impeccable. Those are the things that build real rapport. It's not the fact that you and I like to go fishing together.
Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. Hey everybody, welcome back to Building Your Sales Engine. This is Mark McGraw, your host. Today I have Matt Detjen in the show here with us. Matt is the author of the book Reflect, The Art of Powerful Sales Communication. What a really good read. I recommend you go pick up the book. Matt and I unpack how do you have better conversations with people, active listening, making sure that we're understanding people and all the obstacles and barriers that get in the way that prevent us from really, truly connecting with others. Wonderful ideas and a lot of good strategies we can go implement to go build our sales engine. If you need show notes or notes from any of our episodes, visit buildingyoursalesengine.com/giveaway. And you there can go download some of the worksheets and workbooks and show notes that we have. Let's dive into the conversation with Matt. Matt, I finished your book not too long ago. Really love it. The book is Reflect. Looking forward to hearing more about it. It's got a lot of great components in it. I think there's a lot that people can unpack from active listening and the like. Well, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about yourself and the book and what brought you to writing it.
Yeah, thank you. So Matt Detjen, North American Training Manager for Michelin. That's my day job, but I moonlight as a sales consultant and an author. So there was a course I took in 2007. So we're going to go back in time here, and it was Powerful Sales Communication. It was the course that changed my life in many ways. It changed my life in the way I communicated in sales, but then also in my personal life. Met the owner of the firm, met the owner of the material, and became a lifelong mentor of mine. And we've stayed in contact over all these years. I've taught the material that's in the book. So spoiler alert. That course is the shell or the backbone of this book. I've taught the course over the years as a contractor for her, but during COVID, we were all looking for things to do, right? And for me, Reflect was on my mind as far as a book, and it popped into my head because I said, what do we do with this material? Her business had changed and morphed. She was doing more executive coaching and executive search and had really kind of put training aside. And I said to her, I go, Jane, what if I wrote a book about this material? What if I made it accessible for everybody? Because me standing up in front of a group and teaching it, I'm never going to reach the masses the way I wanted to reach it. So the coolest thing, when you ask someone a question and they instantly answer back to you and there's zero hesitation from Jane. She said, absolutely, write a book about it. So go back to 2007. I thought I was a decent listener. I thought I was a decent communicator. You know where this is going. I was not. And I just became passionate about the material. And for me, writing is one of my creative outlets. And I couldn't think of a better way to share the message of powerful sales communication than to write a book about it.
And isn't it fun, to me at least, that you mentioned the personal side of things? I always love the fact that in what we're fellow trainers and coaches,
right?
You get to apply so much of it personally as much as professionally.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that was my biggest light bulb moment or maybe it was the secondary light bulb moment. At first, sitting in class, I said, I do a lousy job of listening. And then as I was driving home from the course, I thought about my personal life and I go, well, I do a lousy job of listening in my personal life too. So yeah, for us sales trainers out there, anybody that takes a sales course, if we're doing our job correctly, there's been a personal impact that we've had on somebody as it relates to how they communicate with people.
Yeah.
If we did our jobs right.
If we did our jobs right.
Yeah.
I absolutely see that in our world of Sandler as well, that
right.
everything has application both personally and professionally, and that's and you're also a trainer as well and a coach, and I would guess you get a lot of joy out of that side of it too. Is that again? Well, you just said it's the personal side of it as well as the professional side.
Right. Right.
You mentioned in the book about persuasion, and I love the comments about you're trying to give a good name to persuasion.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that. And there is a stigma, it seems, even this day, about sales and what it really is and what it really means. So you unpack it nicely.
Okay, thank you. So persuasion for me, it gets a bad rap. And I wanted to dig into why. And that's rooted for me, actually, a lot of it is rooted in Michelin, because we have an academic-like respect for the facts. We make amazing products. There are amazing widgets about our products that make them perform the way that they do. And when you're selling a premium product, you have to go in with the most legitimate academic-like facts you can. And when you do that, let's talk about what persuasion is. Persuasion is moving someone to act by using factual information. That's really at the heart of persuasion. So when I adopted that definition, and you can look it up, I mean, that is a dictionary definition of it, and I equated it to what we do at Michelin, that really brought persuasion into a different light for me. And so when I'm teaching people about persuasion, it's ditch the slimy, whatever negative feeling you have about it. If you're presenting factual information, and I always use the word academic, you think of a research team at a reputable university. If you're presenting information and you've given choices to someone and they can choose to make their business or their life better, feel amazing about that. So that's where I think in the book I say feel amazing about being persuasive, because you're doing something good for them.
Yeah, and that, to me, that's such a key ingredient. It has to be in their best interest.
Sure.
And in fact, we had a guest, Brian Kavicki, on the show a while back ago, and he said something to the effect of, he said, "It's my job to make sure that I'm protecting the best interests of the prospect or the client."
Right.
And I think when that mindset is there, and it clearly is with you, that's just such a powerful place to come from.
Absolutely. You think about at Michelin on the B2B side, so business to business, we're working with large trucking fleets and mining operations. We're doing math. We're doing a ton of math. And my thought was always, I want someone to be able to come behind me and fact check my math and have them go, well, this was exactly right. I have maybe it's a healthy fear of, as we're persuading with facts, you better have gotten it right, because that has the best interest of the client at heart.
Yeah, and when that happens, then the concept of persuading somebody, I mean, it's in everybody's best interest if they agree. I mean,
sure.
So I love that concept and that principle.
Nice. Yeah. And look, let's talk about where the negative side of this comes from. And I'm interested to see if you take this a different direction. But for me, of course, there's outright shady practices. So like, what gives people a bad taste when they think of persuasion? So there's some outright shady practices, but in my world of B2B and B2C consumers, I see that less. But the other part I honed in on was buyer's remorse. Why do we as consumers get this bad taste in our mouth? And it's usually because we stepped out beyond our means. It's not because a salesperson tricked us. They probably presented facts to us. We had a budget. We had parameters that we knew we needed to stay within. But then they presented a couple options, and we went beyond our means. We went beyond our budget. So when we go home and we look in the mirror, who's it easier to blame? We don't want to blame ourselves. We're going to blame the salesperson. So for me, that's kind of where some of the negative taste maybe in people's minds where persuasion is involved.
Yeah, there's a Sandler rule, and I know you guys are involved with that, Sandler, as well. But the rule is people love to buy but hate to be sold.
Yes.
And so I think that ties in nicely with the idea of persuasion is that they're selling themselves at the end of the day.
Right.
We can't really force someone to make a decision on something. At the end of the day, it's their decision. And I love the way you say it. You're presenting the facts and the math that someone else could go back up. such that you feel a good sense of integrity about anything that you do. And that's what good salespeople do. That's what great salespeople do.
Absolutely. And from the Sandler side of things, we're buying from an emotional standpoint, but we're justifying with the facts and the information.
Indeed. I love that rule. People buy emotionally, they justify their decisions intellectually.
Right. Yes, exactly.
And, you talk about in the book that listening does have a sound. And I think there were so many good things inside of this book that look at listening and understanding other people so nicely and so well.
Thanks.
That was a great concept right there. So I don't want to spoil everything for, go read the book, right? For our listeners, for sure. But what would you say about that? Listening has a sound.
Yeah, that was one of those moments where writing, everybody loves the sound of our own voice and our own words. But that was a moment where I said, ooh, this is good. I think this might resonate with people. Most people have the third grade definition of listening, or the grade school definition, which is sit on your hands, keep your mouth shut, and just let words enter your brain. That's listening. And that's not listening. That's not listening for a deeper understanding. That's not listening for you and I going on a shared journey with each other. That's actually a really poor definition of listening. So when I say listening has a sound, the sound of listening is reflective or active listening. It's me taking a nugget of what you've said. So let's say you've been talking for 2 to 3 minutes and you're telling me a story. Your words, and I apologize to any scientist listening to this or doctor, your words are entering my head. I'm sorting them out. I'm chunking them up. I'm looking for themes. I always mention Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory with the goose, good eggs and the bad eggs. So I'm looking for pieces of meat that are relevant to both of us and why I'm meeting with you. And when I find that theme or thing that I want to throw back at you, I'm looking for a natural pause in our conversation, and I'm throwing a statement back at you. I'm not throwing a question. I'm not. It's not the Inquisition, but that sound that I'm throwing back, the sound of listening, is a check-in to say, I heard you say this. Am I on the right track? Am I hearing you correctly? It also gives you a green light to keep going. So that's important. We'll maybe talk about the bucket analogy later. And I think Sandler has something similar to my bucket analogy. But that green light for you to say, hey, this guy actually hears what I'm saying. Yeah, I want to tell him more. So it's more runway to keep that conversation going. But at the end, that sound of listening, that reflecting, if you walk away, if I've done my job as an active, reflective listener, if you walk away and said, wow, Matt's a really good listener, there's a really good chance that I looked for those appropriate pauses and I tossed little nuggets of my understanding back at you. That's the sound of listening.
One thing I've bumped into, the not sound of listening is that if there's no gap between when someone stops speaking and if you run into that,
oh my gosh. Sure. Yeah, of course.
That's a moment right there where there isn't really a gap. There's nothing right inside of there. And so it's almost like the person is waiting for the other person to say something. Yep. And that's, of course, the opposite of the sound of listening.
Right.
I mean, have you seen other things that people do that get in the way of their ability to really listen to someone, kind of like that one?
Yeah. One of the ones that sticks out to me is, and I use this vacation reference all the time, it's wanting to tell a similar story. We all do this in our personal life. And by the way, there are a few people that are masters at reflecting. There are a few out there, but most of us have to practice and try. So you tell me you went to Miami for vacation. The horrible thing is me sitting here fighting the urge to tell you that I too went to Miami. And after you've given maybe one line, hey, we went to Miami for vacation, and then I jump right in and I talk for 5 minutes about my vacation to Miami. That's a huge cardinal sin in my book. That's not listening. You're going to walk away completely annoyed because you wanted to tell me about your vacation.
Yeah, it's such a deflator.
Yeah. It's like, all I wanted to do was tell him about my trip, and he told me about his trip.
Isn't that funny? And it's so true, and it's so easy to have that happen if we're not conscious of it. And all of these things add up to not only good sales and good sales results, but also good personal results as well.
Yeah. I'll give you another one. So the opposite of a good reflection is a barrier response.
Okay.
So let's talk about things that are easy to reflect. Joy and happiness are easy to reflect. You're stoked about something. You say, hey Matt, this just happened to me. I am so happy. And I look at you and I say, you're stoked. How easy was that for me to reflect that? So for all of us and to all of you listening, it's easy to reflect something good. But for salespeople, where reflecting really comes into play, or if something is, maybe there's some pain or turmoil at home, is being able to reflect sadness or anger. Things happen. We deal with angry customers. That's next level listening, is being able to reflect there instead of the barrier response, which is questioning, defending, rationalizing what happened, where all the customer wants to do is get the emotion out. Because, let's be honest, you can't move forward until that customer gets the emotion out.
Yeah.
They're not going to hear anything else that you say. So a reflection is huge in warding off the barrier responses. I think one of the examples I used in the book was, your service is terrible. I never know when you're coming, and when you do, you're late. So a barrier response would be justifying, defending, deflecting, but owning that would be, we're really dropping the ball. Mm-hmm. The customer looks at you. You just brought their temperature down 5 degrees. They say, damn right you're dropping the ball. And they can give you a little more. And eventually you're going to get past the emotion, and you're going to get down into how that impacted their business. So the barrier response is the other side of reflecting. It's the dark side, if you will.
Sometimes in Sandler, we refer to that as no JED, justify, explain, and defend. And that's an easy response when someone were to say, your service is terrible, you're late. So I love the response that you gave. It sounds like we've really dropped the ball. You're acknowledging their position. You're bonding with them. You're on the same side of the table for a moment, for sure.
Yep.
And I may have this wrong, but the empty the bucket, is that the piece too that you have?
Absolutely.
That you think about, getting the emotional piece out? Describe that, because we need to talk about that.
Yeah, I love the bucket analogy. So the bucket doesn't always have to be something painful, but if you think about a bucket that has layers of dirt in it, we've got surface level information on top. So when we're doing discovery with a customer and we're prospecting, we're getting to know somebody, it's really easy to mine, if you will, those surface level details. Then the next level, we're getting a little juicier. We're getting a little more into how they run their business, maybe things that are impacting them. The next layer, the third, maybe the fourth layer, is their true pain points. It's this cliche, but what's keeping them up at night? What could be better for their business? But if you're not reflecting, it's harder to get to that next level. And then going back, if you use the bucket analogy for emotions, usually emotions are on top. Mm-hmm. And then the root of what's going on is at the bottom. And it's completely different from what you thought it was.
Yeah.
Completely. So unless you're reflecting to go to the next level of the bucket, it's hard to get past if we're talking negative, it's hard to get past I'm super mad.
Yeah.
And you're going to walk out of their office, they're still going to be mad, and you never got to the real issue.
And I think when we see that, and when I've seen that as well, Matt, what ends up happening is that the seller, when they're dealing with something negative with someone, it's uncomfortable.
Yep.
And they want to make it as comfortable as possible by giving a solution prior to that person emptying the bucket.
Yep.
We coach on our side that says, look, someone can't make good decisions when they're in an emotional state.
Correct.
And so you've got to help get them diffused enough, and your tactics and your approaches, your strategies help so much to diffuse someone by your acknowledging their feelings.
Right.
And they go from a level 10 emotion to a level 7 emotion to a level 5 emotion. And you got to get that thing down where if I'm using the phrases right, empty the bucket.
Absolutely.
On the emotional side.
Yep.
So then you can get to problem solving.
Exactly. Yeah, so there's emotion, and then a joke I have is if you ever owe a customer money, they also don't hear anything that you have to say. But yeah, you've got to get through the emotion before you can get to a solution. That's the same thing as you have not agreed upon a problem with the customer, but you're offering a solution. That's another cardinal sin I see of new salespeople.
Absolutely.
Like you don't even really know what their problem is, and you just offered them something.
And by the way, honestly, of experienced salespeople.
Sure.
I'm sure you've seen that too. You get people that have had a lot of experience. They've been in a lot of rooms. They almost know what the problem is that the customer has,
right,
even though the customer may not know that they know it. And
Yep.
and so they're going to jump to solution prematurely.
Right. And that comes off as cocky. So you're right. They maybe have been in the industry for 20, 25 years. They know exactly what's wrong. But if they haven't taken the time to build real rapport and to build a relationship with the customer is just going to think that comes across as cocky, and they're not going to be listening.
That's right.
Even though you're right, they're not going to listen to that.
Yeah. And you mentioned rapport just now as well.
Yeah.
And I loved a lot of things in your book for sure, but I love the principles around building rapport, and I think there's a lot there we could talk about that everybody would get something out of.
For sure.
Tell us a little bit about your take on building rapport, its importance, and what people do and don't do that work.
Yeah. One of the things that sticks out to me is over my career, so 25 plus career in sales, is something I coined the fish. And the fish is what a lot of salespeople think rapport is. So imagine, I've got a huge rainbow trout mounted behind me on the wall. You come in, we're just meeting each other, and you decide to talk about the rainbow trout. 30 minutes later, I'm really nice, and we're still talking about the rainbow trout. And maybe we get in 5 minutes of a business conversation. I've walked out of several sales calls where I was a manager, and I look at the salesperson and I say, "How did that go?" And they say, "It was amazing. We talked, the rapport was amazing, and we talked about fishing, blah, blah, blah." And I say, "Right, but how did the business conversation go?" And they go, "Oh, right." So I've seen that. I've seen rapport, what people think rapport is. I've seen it taken to the extreme. Yeah. And if you and I like fishing, that's a nice to have for our relationship. But that's not building rapport with us from a business standpoint.
We can go fishing, but we may not do business together.
I know nothing about your business. And I've seen salespeople call on customers for years and know that they both like the same sports team. They have some shared hobbies, but they never get anywhere. And then they say, "I don't understand why we're not getting anywhere." Well, that's because you're not building real rapport. So what is it? And I know you and I agree on this. Being intentional about why you're there. We're all busy. Why should the customer spend an hour or 30 minutes talking to you? They've got 100 meetings that they're doing. So intentional about why you're there. And that's even to the point of saying, "Hey, maybe not. I think I have something that will benefit your business. Can we speak for 30 minutes or an hour?" So they know, and you might even preview what that thing is. Having an agenda for the customer, being on time, having a plan. Your follow-up is impeccable. You do the small stuff right. You do what you say you're going to do. Those are the things that build real rapport. It's not the fact that you and I like to go fishing together.
To your point, I think a lot of times people think that I'm a relationship seller.
Exactly.
And I kind of cringe when I hear that these days.
Yep.
Because it's about we both like fishing as opposed to what value do I and my company bring to your company. And to your point, the underlying piece is that we have some commonalities over here. But
right.
I think in this day and age, you cannot rely on just a relationship.
No.
You have to be bringing business value and impact.
Right.
And everything else is, I mean, it's important, but it's bonus. Is that
Sure? Yeah, absolutely. It's a total bonus. The relationship part of relationship sales, and this is, I think, what we're looking for as training professionals. The relationship part is you've built a business relationship over time. Mm-hmm. That's, the rapport that's taken place over time, the value that the customer sees when you walk in the door. That's relationship sales. You're right. People confuse relationship sales with, I'm pretty good at coming in and being chummy about whatever's hanging on the wall. Now, I do have to put a caveat in here. I got critiqued on this on a different podcast. I'm not a small talk monster. So I will come in just like you and I talked when I walked into the office here. I'll small talk for a little while. But when it comes to a business meeting, I am intentional about why I'm there. Yeah. Everyone has a hard stop eventually for when they have to stop talking. So I'll talk for a second. We'll chit chat, but let's get down to business too. I'm gonna see if I can bring value.
Yeah, and I think knowing when to do those. I'm thinking of an example that I ran into because we're both selling as well, and I remember walking into a guy's office and I could tell pretty early on he was a high in disc. It'd be a high dominant, direct, right to the point guy. He's got lithographs of hunting knives, like etched hunting knives, which is really unique.
That is.
That's different. There must have been 20 of them around his office. And I'm like, it's so tempting.
Yeah, I gotta ask. I gotta do
it. But I could tell. And so one of the lessons that I learned from that is I saved all of that till the end.
There you go.
And man, we had a great conversation about it then, but it was business first because that's his wiring,
right?
Another personality style or another person that you might run into, you change the bonding for that situation.
Right.
But to your point, it's the appropriate amount of time, it's the appropriate amount of value.
Yep.
Throughout that.
And that's next level. That's next level selling is realizing who your audience is. There is somebody that might be more along the lines of, hey, I want you to come in and BS with me for a little while. And I want you to come in and BS with me longer than that guy. But it's reading the room and being able to tell who you're in front of. Mm-hmm. You think about learning styles, whether it be visual, kinesthetic, reading, writing. We're never going to pinpoint somebody's exact mixture of those things, but you can pick out the dominant one with some cues. And morphing how we sell to those people is key. And I think that's next level. Pushback I get from that is, well, I'm just going to be me. I'm going to sell the way I want to sell. And that's a rookie move because not everybody is who you are and they don't process information the way you do. So your example of someone who's very direct and they want to get at it, you probably could pick up on their learning style as well of how they wanted to process that information. When I was a young salesperson, I sold exactly the way I wanted to be sold to. Everything I did was visual. And I started to present to as I progressed in my sales career, I started to present to some very analytical people and realized that I was crashing and burning because I wasn't morphing. So my challenge to people is you're not being fake. You're meeting the customer where they are and how they process information.
Yeah. And that's so much of a better route to go through. Otherwise, you're going to alienate a percentage of the population and you're not going to get to truth and you're not going to be able to help them. And I mean, all the negative things that come with that, they just snowball themselves into effect.
Yeah.
We spent time a minute ago talking about being organized. And I think one of the things that you point out, Matt, is that being organized is bonding. Mm-hmm. Coming in prepared, not just the upfront contract, although that's part of it.
Yep.
What are some of the things that you've seen as best practices for people that really are well organized, well prepared? Mm-hmm. I mean, they come ready to go. If there's a quick checklist that we can build together, what would it be?
I would say having an outline. And I know that scares the bejesus out of some people, but having an outline is big. Knowing where you want the conversation to go. I like to reference the high school speech model. Tell them what you're about to tell them, and then tell them what you told them. That comes into play with the outline, letting the customer know exactly where you plan on taking the conversation. And then the check-in comes with, at the beginning, is this where you see this conversation going? Is there anything else that you want to talk about? So outline is huge. And then beyond the outline is the pivot. What people struggle with is when the customer wants to go somewhere else and you have that outline in front of you, you've got your high school speech template, and then they go, we want to go here. And you go, oh, that's not on my outline. So there's a comfort level beyond the outline in knowing, hey, let this happen. Be able to pivot because obviously there's something important they want to talk about. So that's, not too deep in an outline, but I've told every salesperson I've ever ridden with, don't be afraid to write down exactly where you think this should go, check in with the customer, and then don't be afraid if they want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's what you call a pivot or the pivot to it. And I think that's really critical for bonding. It's really critical for listening as opposed to, going in and telling somebody something.
Right.
And just driving your agenda. One metaphor that I've thought about, or analogy, Emily, our mutual friend Emily will check me on that. She'll laugh. It's one of those choose your own adventure books.
Right.
I've thought about this many times. It's like if you get to this point, you can give them some options and choices, and we can go left over here or we can go right. But if we try to guide them too much, I think it feels contrived.
Yep.
And to your point, I think it's super important to pivot to to where we need to be.
Right. I reference to your choose your own adventure. I reference a book in my book, A Deep Survival: Who Lives, Who Dies, and Why.
Okay.
So the author researched tons of cases where people died at sea, in the wilderness, and then also who survived.
Yeah.
And the one theme that I picked out, one major theme, was confusion kills. So when people are confused, they won't pivot. They think that they have to go this direction and this is the only thing that's going to save them, and they don't stop and embrace the pivot. Confusion is a killer. Same thing happens in sales. Customer goes a different direction, you get confused, you're not ready for it, and then you double down on the direction you wanted to go. You're going to turn off that customer because you weren't able to pivot. So, you wouldn't think that a survival book would equate to sales, but I definitely think it does.
I see it a ton in presentations. People go in with their PowerPoint decks and they're determined to get through their 27 slides in 30 minutes.
Yep. And by God, we're going to do it.
By God, we're going to do it. And they've calculated how many seconds per slide they have to go through, and the whole thing. And I think that where people really get the most out of a conversation is that when you don't finish the presentation, you go in a different direction that where the client or customer wants to take you,
right,
with some guidance from the salesperson.
Sure.
But to me, I think those are the presentations, in quotes,
right,
that really have the most impact and really do the best job.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about the outline. The other piece would be, especially if you're presenting something that's numbers related, one of my quotes is, do the math until you can't do the math anymore.
Okay.
We do a lot of math on the B2B side with Michelin. And whether it be mileage related or fuel savings, do it until you can't do it anymore. Work every math problem. That's another piece of preparation.
Give me an example or something, because I love the concept.
Okay, so for us in the tire business, there are a lot of data points that will move the needle for saving money for, say, a large trucking fleet. One of those might be fuel savings. So if you have a trucking fleet that has, let's say, 1,000 tractors pulling 1,000 trailers, if you can save them a few percentage points in fuel every year, that's millions of dollars. If my tire can go longer than the competitor, can last longer, and you're changing less tires, that could be millions of dollars to your tire budget. So stacking math upon math and doing all of the equations that you can, and being to go in fully prepared to talk to the customer, that's next level. And so do the math until you can't do the math anymore. For me is don't leave any math problem out. If I walked in and I said, hey, we're going to talk about fuel economy today. Well, the pivot might be, you might want to talk about mileage. Yeah. You might want to talk about how long it's going to last. If I didn't do that math, we're going to sit here and I'm going to twiddle my thumbs and I'm going to wish that I had done that other math. So that's a big deal for anybody that's selling a value-based product where acquisition price is high, but the total cost of ownership proves out. You got to be doing the math.
And so what you're describing there, I think, is then there might be multiple channels by which someone could save money.
Absolutely.
And you want to run the math on each one of the channels and stack those together such that at the end of the day, the buyer is looking at the total cost of ownership as opposed to what the in your words, acquisition price
exactly.
is.
Yep. And it sets you up for the pivot too. If they want to go, let's say that you don't have to pull every one of those cards out.
Yeah.
Let's say
sometimes there's not enough time to pull them off. I mean, I find that you just run out of time.
Yeah,
I can't pull all those cards out.
Exactly. But the chance that they do want to go a different direction, at least you've done it and you've got that card in your pocket and you can talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think, by the way, that is a skill that people by and large need to go develop for many people. And that's this skill of being able to quantify a problem.
Absolutely.
And putting a dollar amount on it so that you can take something. Well, somebody says, well, that's costing a lot of money.
Right.
And then the salesperson, to your point from earlier, might jump in and, well, let me tell you how we fix that or how we can, as opposed to, well, how much money? Yep. Is that a little problem or a big problem for you? Can we put a number on it? Yep. And those types of approaches, to me, being able to quantify the cost of a problem, to me, is a really valuable skill.
Right. Especially in B2B sales, I say this in the book, getting it to $1 is the gold standard. You've got your feature, your advantage, and your benefit. Benefit's always the dollar. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people stop at the feature. If you're really bad, you stop at the feature. If you're a little better, you stop at the advantage. Gold standard is getting to the end and talking money.
Yeah, I love it. That is absolutely the case. And if it has a dollar sign attached to it on the front end and the buyer has told you what that is and it's their number.
Yes.
I mean, it's gold at that point.
So, I love that you said that. If it's their number, that is absolute
Sandler
gold.
rule, people never argue with their own data.
Yeah, dang it, that's my number.
All of a sudden, it makes a huge difference. It makes it easier, too, to justify and rationalize a lot of times higher pricing, too. Sure. And so that skill becomes so valuable in so many different ways. Yep. And it really is about asking questions and reflecting back on what they're saying and digging into what they've got going on their side. So
yeah, when you think about the bucket, the price, the acquisition price is probably not the issue. So it's like as you go a few layers down in the bucket and you get more towards the total cost of ownership conversation, that's where it proves out. But if you stop at the surface level, if you stop at, well, that's too expensive.
Yeah,
you're never going to go any further.
Yeah.
You got to go a few layers deeper when you're dealing with a high acquisition price product.
I love the Warren Buffett quote: "Price is what you pay, value is what you get."
There you go.
And to me, that says everything. I remind myself of that all the time when I'm selling as well and doing my part,
or when we're buying something.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. I mean, you can pay more for something, but if you get 10 times more than what you paid, that increases the value.
Right.
There's all kinds of levers that you can pull as a seller in there to look at what the true value is if you're good at asking enough of the right questions and quantifying the value from the buyer's side. Matt, we spent some time here talking about the B2B side and all the intellectual side.
Sure.
Let's pivot.
Okay. All right. I'm ready.
Let's pivot to the personal side.
Sure.
To me, I think the tools that you have in the book and what you're thinking about as far as really understanding someone and not becoming defensive, the personal impact of that is just tremendous.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about what you see over there, and let's talk about that for a minute.
Sure. I was a fixer, and I still am. I'm a recovering problem fixer.
Welcome to humanity. Is what I would say.
Thank you.
Thank
you. Because I don't think it ever truly goes away. Reflective listening is something that we all have to practice. And I mentioned if you have children, having children and reflecting to them is a superpower. because as an adult, you've seen things and you usually know the answer instantly. Back to our salesperson who's been there for 25 years, they know instantly what's wrong. But that's not what people always need, especially on the personal side. Most of the time, if someone's having an issue, they want to be heard first and they want to get the emotion out. And I joke around about the parenting side because you're fighting every urge in your body to not just fix the problem, but to listen. You're feeling this, you're upset about this, so those are the reflections that need to happen as a parent. Or if we're listening to one of our friends who's having an issue or a spouse. So for me, that was my other light bulb moment when I took the course was, I'm a problem solver. And my big issue was I would take in the surface level details, so the surface level details of the bucket, and I would look for just enough information to see if I could solve the puzzle. And that was it. That was I'd like to solve the puzzle. And personal side for me is I teach reflecting, and obviously I wrote a book about it, and I'm reminded on a daily basis to practice it because we're humans and sometimes we got to get the emotion out.
Yeah, it really is the case. And I just love that concept of really understanding and not trying to solve prematurely.
Yeah.
It really is a winner. I was thinking of myself as coaching my kids from time to time and having conversations with them. And, if you're married, the answer to this, or it comes up there too.
Yeah.
And that is, what question can I respond to this that's not a statement of my opinion?
Right.
And, somebody, a kid or whoever comes up with some conclusion. And, I just one thing that's popped in my head to ask is, how did you come up with that? How did you come to that conclusion or come to that answer? And get them to back in and explain how they got there.
Yeah.
Man, is that insightful.
Yeah. Tell your story. Yeah. Tell me your story of how you got here.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Not in in Sandler, not in a critical parent way.
Yeah.
Not that, but in a nurturing way where you're really seeking to understand the person and get inside of the thought process that brought them to that point.
Right. You're kind of saying, I wasn't there. I didn't make the decision.
It's well said.
Help me climb in there and walk me through what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if the motive is set right, and I know you talk about this in the book too, if the motive is set right in that my intention is not to manipulate you to an answer that I want,
right,
but my intention is to understand, that's a powerful place to come from. And it's actually persuasive, but not necessarily overtly.
Right.
Yeah, the motive matters.
Yeah, and if we go back to reflecting should never be manipulating. It's actually never a question. It's always a statement, and it's always a nugget of something you heard. That gives the speaker a moment to say, my favorite word is exactly. Mm-hmm. So if I make a reflection to you and you say exactly, that means I heard you. Yeah. I nailed it. But it also gives you the opportunity or the child to say, no, that's actually not what I meant. Mm. So you're not manipulating. You're legitimately checking in. I heard this. Am I right? So there's no manipulation there. It's truly just a statement that is, like, let's be honest, it is an implied question because you are saying, like, did I hear you correctly? But no manipulation at all.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, again, we'll end here too with how important the selling tools are for both personal and professional life. Yep. And you've written a wonderful book.
Thank you.
Really recommend it to folks. Go read it, go apply it. Matt, how can people reach out to you if they wanted to learn more about you or
Sure.
if they wanted to connect with you more? How could they go do that, Matt?
Great. So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm also
great LinkedIn, by the way.
Thank you. So I've got LinkedIn, and then so that would be the business side of things. Personal side, I'm on Instagram, so I'm out there in the universe. And then bookreflect.com is the website for the book.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice. It is a winner. Go get it for our listeners out there.
Awesome.
Matt, thank you for taking the time and coming in. I know you had to drive over, and man, really appreciate it. It's nice getting to spend some time with you.
You as well. Appreciate it.
Indeed.
Awesome.